So my wife tells me, don't you think the water pressure is a little bit low? So I go out to the well house, and sure enough, the meter is running and no appliances are on. Turns out this valve exploded and it was shooting straight out of the center of it. Of course, the valve that is the most insulated inside of the building, that's the most insulated with all of the equipment, would be the one that explodes. And it's such a shallow water level, I'm probably just going to have to sit around shop vacuuming it up for the next few hours. On the bright side, the chicken coop is tied to the line that tripped the GFCI, but the chicks survived and the incubator only got down to about 70. It's 40 degrees today, so overall not a bad day for this to happen. I'm glad I caught this, because if this had frozen again, well, it would be really annoying to deal with this being a sheet of ice. Up to 50 gallons so far. Let's see how water resistant this water resistant drywall really is. Try to maximize our productivity in this situation. Here we go. This has an open edge too. You know, the water level is just not high enough and it hasn't been long enough. I think this probably happened maybe around noon or so. At this point, I guess I'm looking at around 150 gallons. I know what you're thinking. 150 gallons is a ton of water. Actually, it might be a ton of water. I haven't done the math, but you know, the funny thing is, it's not even like a quarter inch. This is just such a large structure that that's really not that much. Well, we're up to about 65 gallons. Turns out 150 gallons is only about 1,200 pounds. I thought this was kind of funny. This is floating a little bit, so it's like a slip and slide or something. Oh, I mean, it's good that the vast majority of my stuff is off the floor. Oh, wow. That's incredible. Look at that. That's still on. That is in water, GFCI, and it's still on. Crazy. Well, I'm kind of on the home stretch here. At this point, all the water is pretty hard earned. I have to, looks like this is the deepest spot left. Right next to the electrical, of course. And of course, right here I have battery acid, which is about 35% sulfuric acid. I've been hearing these big banging sounds outside. And I think they are sheets of ice falling off the building. Last load. That makes 10 loads at 16 gallons per 160 gallons. And the floor is still not perfectly dry, of course, but it's very difficult to get much more out of it. So, I believe I will call this cleanup complete, and thankfully it's going to be warm the next few days. So what I'll do is I'll just open up the doors around noon or so and then let all that water evaporate out. So there are probably some low points along these walls, and as you can tell, the entire structure is covered in this foam insulation. It is totally impervious to like mold, rot, and that sort of thing. It's, you know, entirely synthetic, no organics to break down. So it doesn't especially matter, but nonetheless, there could be a substantial amount of moisture behind these walls for a while, which concerns me because, you know, you get enough vapor on a dead insect body or something, it's still gonna start stinking. Or if there's a dead mouse or something behind one of them. I need a beer. This is ridiculous. Oh. The worst part is a whole lot of good beer. All right. Here we go. Last one. Been holding that all day. On the bright side, the floor's pretty clean. I've learned from past experience that after you've cleaned up something wet like this, you don't want to leave this put together. You want it to be able to dry out. If you don't, well, let's just say there is enough stuff in there with the water that it will definitely start stinking. Usually like fish. Whew. So the other problem, this is probably not a completely open cell foam, but it's also not a closed cell foam because it has absorbed some water, and when I step on it, some water is released. So I'll probably have to just sort of pick up these sheets and toss them around a little bit. Well, I picked up one solid sheet. That's any kind of plastic, which unfortunately there's a lot, will potentially hold moisture under it. For example, these partitions made of plastic will hold the water and it won't let it evaporate. It's a problem. But it's not a problem I can solve easily. On the other hand, the ribbons of wood holding it together, holding the plastic sheet, are hydroscopic and they will absorb that water. So my hope is that eventually the water will work its way through the wood and cohesively ride that away from the plastic, because I really don't feel like pulling all that apart. Last thing, I stuck this sulfuric acid into a plastic bin, which just incidentally had these rocks in there. I don't actually know what would happen. I'm pretty sure it would release some kind of toxic gas if it did leak, but I'll probably notice that right away. Well, I had thought this valve was failing, and I thought water was coming out of the center. And although I haven't ruled that out, I did find this thing was like in pieces, this backflow preventer here. So, good bet what was actually happening was it was just running up the line around the insulation and spraying out the front here, making it appear as though it was the valve. Because I've never had one of these valves fail, in spite of freezing and being metal and that sort of thing. But this thing sure as heck failed. You can see here, there's some fractures. Unfortunately, this is about the only above ground backflow preventer I have. All the others are underground. And now I'm kind of wondering if it would be worth digging up the line and putting a backflow preventer underground like the others. The grand total was about 160 gallons that I shop vacked up. But I would have to guess the entire leak must have been closer to 200 gallons, if not more. I think the rest of it just sort of soaked into wood and is left in the channels around the walls, that sort of thing. 2 gallons per minute about 100 minutes. I got out here around 2 p.m. So roughly noon. Yeah, been leaking since noon, which is about when the temperature peaked. And so it must have just froze the valve when it got down to 10 or lower Fahrenheit, and then today when it warmed up it must have just started pouring out. So I have a head cam and I also have this other cam on the side so I can show you guys how I did all of that. Here I'm just checking off this sapwood after squaring that edge, and then you just go all the way back and then adjust back.